Right, here we are then. Sew for the Soul book. This will be the last video. A bit sad really, can't believe how much work has gone on since we started this project. So we've got everything finished, all your pages done, and we are now going to be looking at our cover. So the book's actually ended up a lot fatter than I anticipated. So the original bits of fabric that I've cut out for the cover I've had to redo. So there's different ways that you can do your cover. I've got one particular way, but I know that everybody out there will probably have their own way as well. You could keep it really simple. You could go quite elaborate if you wanted to. So you could just get a piece of fabric, just one that you particularly like. I don't know if I just use that as an example, and you might just cut a piece and it might just wrap round your book, and you might just want to leave it at that. That's perfectly fine. But I'm going to do mine, like I said right at the very beginning, in 3 pieces. That was my plan originally, so that's what I am going to carry on with. So I've got some more of my cotton wadding, and what I've done is I've cut a piece for my front of my book, but I've extended it just a little bit. So that piece that I've cut there is 6 by 6 inches. Then I've done the same for the back, cut another piece and had that, and then I've cut a spine, so I get like a chunky edge, and I've done it so it's a bit longer because I quite like the idea of the spine going outwards. So that's the basic principle behind the cover that I'm going to do. So it's 3 pieces, but like I say, you don't have to do it in 3 pieces. I've just done it like that because hopefully it'll just all stitch just together, and I'll have to have a little bit of a play around just to get it to work, get it to fit, but that's the basic principle with what we're going to do. My cover, one of the things that I would suggest is you just stick with your base colour that you chose. So I'm going to work with greys on my spine and my cover. So I've got 3 sections. I've just pinned it just so that you can see. I ended up doubling the spine up because the wadding that I used, for some reason in one little bit it was quite thin, so I just wanted to make that sturdy. So I've done a double piece of wadding that's there, and then all I've done is I have cut out some bits of fabric that will fit each of the pieces. So I've got 1, 2 and 3. So that's the basis, going to be the base for my pieces for this, and I'm going to play around then with the fabrics and stitching and decoration and things like that that are going to go onto the surface. I need to try and remember which way round it's got to go. So I think that was the front. That was the front. That's going to be the back. Yep, front and back. So there's my front piece, side piece, back piece. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because I always do this, I'm going to do stuff like this just so that I remember where everything's going to go. Just going to use my phone. It's amazing how mobile phones save you a lot of trouble. So I'm just going to take a photo just of that so that I know I've got that front, that and that. Right, so what I'm going to do now is unpin this because I need to work on each of the pieces separately. So I'm going to unpin the front first. So that's my back and my spine over at one side. Okay, so got that bit. Just pin it in place. I've done it. It has gone over the edge just a little bit. and then once I've done a little bit of stitching, I can then just offer it up to my book and just work out where I need to trim. But this is just giving us a base background to play on. And then what I've done is I have collected together loads of different greys and some bits of lace and some bits of tatting, and then I've got my range of threads again. And I'm just going to think about all the different things that I did in my book, and just think about some of my favourite techniques. So everybody's are going to be slightly different. So one of the things that I did really like was the quilting effect. So when we did the background, oops, hearts keep falling out of their pocket. So when we did the background to this, I loved the texture that it sort of created. So I think I might start there with the front cover, possibly. It's quite good just to have a bit of a recce through and a bit of a reference. I did like the lace that I had on that, so I've got some nice bits of lace as well, but I did love, you see, I quite like the raggedy bits and then the stitching on the top, so I might go with something like that to start off with and place some bits down. Yeah, so it's one of the things that's really good about your book. It just really helps just giving you ideas. So if you ever get really stuck with stuff, it can just give you some really nice ideas. You need to remember where the spine is, because obviously that's going to turn up and stitch into the other bit, so you don't want that to get too thick, because then that's really going to distort your book. So you're going to try and keep everything towards this sort of end on your piece. Now I've got a bit with a frayed edge. You know how I love my frayed edges, so I think I might start with that. So here we go, we're off and running, which is always good. Now you see straight away I'm busy thinking in my head, which my husband always laughs when I say things like that, because he's like, well, where else would you think? Because I'm now thinking that actually that would look quite cute on the spine, lifted out, a bit of furriness on the spine. Yeah, I quite like that. Now the question then is do I have it on the top, or do I sandwich it? I quite like it on the top actually. Right, we'll go for it on the top. So I'm just going to pin everything in place. Again, we're auditioning our fabrics. I do love it, as I've said before. I think I've mentioned when people on Instagram have taken pictures of their auditions. Just make me smile. Okay. Like that. Trim that off. I'm going to keep that bit because I'll probably use that on the back or something like that. So here we are, we're off, we're running. So I've got some tassels as well that I thought were quite cute that I might use somewhere. I've got some bits of lace just to start playing around with. That's pretty. Quite like this Yorkshire tweed as well. I think the contrasts that work incredibly well with this sort of work. I know quite a few people have asked about getting depth into your work. Well, it's all about just the different shades, the different tones of the colours that you're using, and also playing around. I'm just going to cut that out now, and I've thrown the wrong bit away. Where are we? There we go. Playing around as well with your edges, because sometimes when you've used a thick fabric like this, it can be a bit thick and a little bit too much, so just teasing out those edges does just work quite nice. One of the things that you need to have a think about is, are you going to have fastening on your book? And actually the book came from a fastening that I'd bought, and I want to see if I can use it. I was on the Merchant and Mills site looking at the fabrics like you do. Oh, I don't want to cover that up because I quite like that. And I found these giant toggles, and I thought, oh God, they're absolutely gorgeous. So I'm still umming and ahhing, but I am wondering about having that on the book to have as my opening. So that's something I'm just going to keep in the back of my mind. So you might want to have a think about it. You can put a tie in there. There's all sorts of different things that you could do. Just thinking about how, if you want to have a fastening on it, how you could close it. So that dart piece there, if it then ends up being too dark, put some lace or something like that over the top, and again that softens it down, which makes it really, really nice. Need to get some other bits of fabric. That's the same one that I've used. That's the same one. Use that one and that one. Okay, I don't know what we've got here. Oh, let's see, that's quite nice, that tonal range. Seems so. Move that out of the way. I don't know if any of you have ever done the same thing that I've done. You're busy cutting and then you realise that you've gone and cut straight through everything, which is not good. Really, really, really not good. So if I was going to do my toggle, I love the word toggle, that's going to be stitched on there, but for stitching it, because it's leather, I'm going to have to punch some holes through it, I think. Or I could glue it, but I'd quite like a bit of stitch on there. So I've got somewhere a bradawl that you'd use with bookmaking. It's another one of those pieces of equipment that I bought when I was bookmaking, and I don't know where it is. I quite like that blue. I don't really want to cover that up. Maybe that's a bit too big. Let's go a bit smaller. So if I keep that flat, pop that round there, and that can go there. That's nice. Quite like that. Yep, quite liking that. So if you get bits that you like, pin it. We don't faff, we make decisions. Okay, so I need some other little bits and pieces. So that's going to go there. So I probably need something here. Now I had got somewhere. Oh, there we go, Suffolk puff. I've got a grey one, a vintage grey one. So that's quite cute. So that possibly could go on the front. You can make them, obviously. If you have a look at some of the previous videos, I go through making Suffolk puffs on there. Oh, that has a trim down the edge, down there. That'd be nice. It's like I want to put quite a bit on, but I just think you have to be careful sometimes because it can go a little bit over the top. It's making me giggle now because I said don't put too much at this edge, whereas actually now I'm putting quite a lot at that edge. I just think it's quite nice. Pin through, try and get through the holes, then it will just hold that in place. There we go. That's going there. And I don't want that too close because then when I do stitch it, that Suffolk puff's going to really get distorted. There we go. Okay, that's there and there. That's possibly going to go on the front. And then I need to just keep having a bit of a play. I've got this, haven't I? A little bit of a play. It's one of those things, like, I think with most of the pages that I've done, I go through bits where I really, really like what I'm doing, and then I'll do something, or I've done some stitching or something like that, and suddenly don't like it, it's not working, but I try and persevere and just keep going with what I'm doing, and then usually it all sorts itself out in the end. It does. So I quite like this because I've got this, and see, the decision is then is, do I put any colour on? In my head it was just to stick with your base colour, but I know I've got some like bluey greys in there, but I quite like the idea of the book cover just being that colour that we've got, that's that consistent colour throughout. Ooh, perhaps I need to play around with a little bit of that. Ooh, that's pretty. A little bit of tatting. Got some little edges there. Got the mid, that's quite nice. I quite like that. That breaks that up, and that does look really pretty. I might put that on after I've done my stitching. So I've got a couple of bits that I think I might add, but what I'm going to do is just pin all that in place. Pin that there. What I might do with that, let's fold that underneath so I get a nice neat edge. Just with that, pin that in place. So I'm just going to start off quite simply, a couple of bits and pieces, and then I'm going to start stitching. Now the question now is, which way do I stitch? Do I go top and bottom? So I've done top and bottoms with everything else, or do I go across? I could do top and bottom, and then I might do a couple that go across. So I'm going to go with a pale grey purlay thread, and just have a look at this, just trim that. Just trim that so I've just got a nice edge to be working on. Oh, can't really cut through a pin. Damage my scissors. I don't really want to do that. Okay. Right. So I'm just using an ordinary needle. You could use a longer shishiko needle if you want, because we're just doing a running stitch. So again, I'm going to try and keep them fairly evenly spaced. Make sure everything's just caught down. So I'm just doing a really simple, just a running stitch. Okay. And then when I come back up the other way, what you want to do is just try and line them up. So if you keep on sharing your pictures on Instagram, if you just do the hashtag sew4thesoulbook, anybody that's following that hashtag then will see your work and some amazing examples going on. And if you want to email me them, every so often I keep doing a community video, because I just think we've all been doing this. I don't know what sort of situation everybody is now in where they are, because it seems to change weekly. We've been on household lockdown, and then some areas are coming out of household lockdown, and you never know. By the time you see this, I might be back on household lockdown. So we're just about getting ready for going back to school. So I'll be doing this in and amongst everything, so the videos will just slow down a little bit now because I won't have as much time, which is why this is going to be the last main video for the 2020 project. To say I was only going to do one project this year and we've ended up doing two is amazing, and I just need some time then to start planning the next project, which is a little bit scary, thinking about, oh God, actually planning stuff for 2021, but it is quite nice to be planning something actually for the future. It just feels like things are getting, or have the potential to be getting back to normal. So all I'm going to do is just carry on stitching this up and down, just to create that sort of feel. Okay, I'll be back soon. Quick update of where I am with my cover. Got a bit carried away last night doing all the stitching, so you can see that I've done the running stitch just up and down, and you get that lovely meandering sort of feel, and then I've done a few stitches going horizontal as well, stitching over the pieces. I've got my little frayed edge there, so I got a bit carried away with that, so I ended up carrying on, and I decided for the back I was just going to do the straight stitches, because this is going to go on the back of my book. Not 100% sure what I'm going to do on there. I might put some pieces over the top or some little bits of lace, but I don't particularly want to do too much on the back. I could just quite like just the love of the fabric, so that's going to go on the back of the book. That's the front, and then the spine, I decided with this one I was going to start stitching rather than vertically. I was going to go horizontally, so I'm going to carry on stitching first, and then, because this has been my favourite bit of fabric that I've used in my book, I'm going to add a bit of that down the middle, probably a bit thinner. Let's have a look. Maybe a little bit thinner. I might offset it slightly, and then I'm going to stitch on that, and then probably add a little bit of lace or something. I do like this one because it has these gaps in. I love threading fabric through, so I've got like a little strip, so I might even have, so I might have that on there, then that, and then I might thread some, trim that down and actually thread something through there, and then just have that stitched down for my spine, which will go in there, and then these bits will get all stitched together. So I've got to work out actually putting it all together, but I just thought I'd give you a quick update of where I am at. So I'm focusing quite a bit on the front, going to do some on the spine, not sure about the back yet. I'll probably add some little bits, maybe some bits of lace onto the back or something. I know I had some tatting, which, oh, there it is. And I've got my Suffolk puff as well. So I might, because I quite like the tatting because it gives a bit more 3D where the lace is a little bit flat. So it might be this bit of tatting might come on and then pop. That looks pretty already. Maybe the Suffolk puff with a little bit of the tatting over the top. And then I'm still debating about my toggle. I quite like the idea of the toggle, so it looks quite nice underneath there. I might just have to jump in maybe and just stitch it on. I've got to punch holes through so then I can actually stitch it on. But if you want to do like a tied one, you could have yourself, say if this was a longer piece of ribbon, it might be that you stitch that on here, and then you've got a piece then that'll wrap around your book as well. There you see, I'm doing my thing again, aren't I, where I'm thinking, oh, you could do that, and actually the piece that you do, you could stitch into it and embroider into it, but just keep it simple. I bought these originally for the book, so I think I will add those on. So you start looking over and seeing things that you've got. That might just be a bit heavy, but could be quite nice down the spine. Oh, that could go through. I could wrap that through, maybe. That could go through and on the spine. So there's so many options. I mean, it depends on what you've got in your stash as to what you're going to do, but we're just playing around using any of the stitches that you've done so far, anything at all on your cover, and I'll come back then with the 3 bits once I've got them finished, and then we'll look at how we're actually then going to attach all this together and put it on our book. Really quick snippet, because I was busy thinking about this and just realised that I needed to get my holes. I have this little tool that punches holes and it twists, and then you get different ends to create holes in. It was my friend Lynn that told me about this, and so I've got my piece of wood, and all you do is place it on and just punch it up and down a couple of times. Oops. There we go, and it punches a hole through. So I'm a bit excited now. I've just found out how to do that, so I'm going to mark out the holes and punch those out, and then that will get stitched on. So I'm definitely using my toggle. Just found that, so I thought I'd share that with you. Okay, bye. Good evening, everybody. I'll give you a bit of an update of where I'm up to. I've spent quite a few evenings now working on my cover. So like I mentioned just in the last little bit, I discovered how to cut out some holes in my leather tags. So I've got those stitched on now. So this is the back. I've kept this quite simple. Just put a piece of the tatting on. I've got some of my vintage buttons and just using, I'm quite lucky, my sewing machine writes. So I just got a bit of ribbon really and just put handmade just to go on the back, and I've popped a bit of lace on this edge as well just to give me a little bit of an edge. Now the front, I thought I'd finished it, and then I realised that one of the things I haven't added to anything of my pages, which I know a few of you have, are some beads, and I'd bought all these beads and everything when I was doing the last piece. So I just thought, right, I need to start putting some beads on there as well. So my front cover has just developed slightly. So I've used the tatting. So I had one piece of tatting that I've cut up, which I know a few people think, oh my God, I can't really cut into stuff, but otherwise it'd just be kept in a cupboard. And I just think it's just nice to use bits. I wish I could say I've made it myself, but I haven't. It's a vintage piece that I've got. And then I just started working with my beads and just done 3 sections where it's really, really heavily, I don't know how much that'll go in focus. It's really heavily beaded. So I'll do like I did on a few of my last videos, and I'll pop a couple of close-up photos just so that you can see that. So I've layered things up. I've got my little Suffolk puff in there, and I've used that as like a frame, and I've used a bit of the tatting as the frame. So I've got the 2 pieces, and originally I was going to encrust all up here, but it was getting a bit much. So I've just done a little bit there because I think 3 areas, I like things in odd numbers. I just think it really works. So I've got 3 bits of tatting going across the back, and then I've got these little toggles that I thought were quite cute, and then I've just got a little bit of a gap up here, and then found my safety pins. I'd put these in a really safe place. I couldn't find them anyway. I was having a bit of a tidy up or looking for something else. I found my safety pins, and I just thought that just finishes it off nicely. And then I've got my toggle, and then this is the spine that I was working on. It's tucking in. Oh, that probably just needs stitching back down again. It's just popping out. So I'll just pop a couple of little stitches just to keep that in there. So I've kept that again quite simple, and all I've done is a tiny running stitch just to attach the front to the spine. And with my spine I've done quite fluffy edges just down there. Now, bit of a hint. I didn't think about this before I started stitching it, but because I'd done running stitches that way, it actually shrank my piece just a little bit. So when I came to put it up onto my front cover, this bit here, it was actually a little bit smaller. So what I've done is I've just added a couple of bits of Yorkshire tweed and a lace trim around the edge. So then when I pop this on the front now, it does fit. And actually the lace trim worked really well, because when I'd been working on this front page, it's actually slightly smaller than all the other pages. So depending on how your book sort of seems to have come together, you just need to think about things. It's just about adapting. So all I would do next is, once I've decided it's all finished, and I think I am just going to, it's really hard to do, but I think I am just going to say, do you know what, it's done. Mainly because I'd like to get on with some other stuff. I've got some other projects that I'd like to have a go at. So I'd just pin it to that front page, just at the front there, and then just work out where your page goes and just pin it just to hold it in place. Oh dear, there's my phone, sorry about that. Oh, I'll come back in a second, I've just got to answer that. Okay, I'm back. Really sorry about that. Normally I would remember to switch my phone onto silent, but on this occasion I forgot. So I'm just going to pin my pages, and all I'm going to do to join them together are some small stabbing stitches. Hold that together there. So it's just going to be the pages that are stitched. I'm not going to stitch the spine. The spine's going to stay free flowing. So I'll just choose one area to start stitching from. A bit of a thread. So I think what I'll probably use is a machine thread. Neutral colour. So depending on what colour your book is, depends on what colour thread you would possibly use. Let's get it threaded up. There we go. So I'm going to do it double. Okay. I'm not going to start stitching because I know I haven't attached that back bit, but all I would use is a double thread. So I'll just cut this off when I've done. Just come up from one side. Oops, just near to the edge. And then what you want to do is when you're going through, you're going to go through and you're going to go at an angle so that you're moving along, not too far. So if you can see, I've got that angle, so my needle's going that way. That just means then you'll get a tiny stabbing stitch at one side, and then I'll do the same. So from that side, I'm coming at an angle that way to trap that down, and I'll just keep going all the way around the edge so that it attaches that to that. Okay, so that's just going to be the sewing together. Right, I just need to take that off because I haven't attached my back page. So I'll just pull those out. Back and pink cushion. Okay, cushion, pink cushion. Right, so I need to attach my back page together, so I need to decide how that's going to go. So I've got my bit of lace so that when I do it, I'm going to have the lace there. And I think what I'm going to do with this is just to bring in a little bit of the little bit of bling. I think I might bead along here as well, so maybe add some beads as I'm going. I don't know whether or not that will go through. So I've got some really nice big beads. Always check if you're not using a beading needle. Always just check that your needle will go through your bead before you start. it saves a lot of heartache in the end. Okay. Actually doing that now, you see, I'm thinking I'd be better doing a buttonhole stitch. Let's check that's going to go through. Yeah. Okay. Right, so offer that up. If your back page is a little bit wider than that, just try and centralize it. It's not an exact science. And you can always trim things at the end, so when it comes to it, once I put it on the book, that's moved down. Just move that across. I think I must have ended up with my back pages slightly bigger. Oh, that's why, because I ended up with those ones going that way rather than that way. So it has ended up slightly wider, so but when that goes on there, that actually fits a little bit better. Right, where are we? Fastening that onto there. Okay, so just centralise it up. There we go. Pins. That's better. I had quite a nice time just sat on an evening. Sat doing some sewing. There's nothing better after a day at work. Okay. Right. So I've got to get my head round a blanket stitch. So I'm going to come up the top. There we go. So it goes along. Might just put a couple of stitches in there just to hold that corner. So depending on how your piece has sort of finished up will just depend on how you end up putting it all together. So I'm just going to do a little cross stitch just in that corner just to hold that together. Then we're going to start at the top, pop a bead on, come across, and then I'm going to create my blanket stitch. So I'm coming across with my thread, I've got my needle, I'm going to go down, come back up, a little bit further on, there we go, back up, and that's looped around, so that creates my first blanket stitch. Grab another bead, put that there. So I'm just laying that along where my bead is, just coming in, going through to the other side, come back up, make sure that thread is round your needle, and then you've got another blanket stitch. Another bead on. I'm glad I remembered to do some beading. I do like beading work. Yeah. Back through. There we go. So I'm going to end up with a line of beads that'll be up that side of my book, and then the blanket stitch is holding it together. Then when I've done that, I'll pop it over my jacket and then just do a tiny stab stitch just round the edge of the pages, and then when I come back, quite excited, I feel like it needs a drum roll, it's been quite epic. We'll be done. Just say I was only going to do one project this year. We've not done bad. Hopefully wherever you are, you're back to a, not normality, because I don't even know if that's ever going to happen again. It's just a new normal. I know we're out of local lockdown, but you never know. By the time I've finished doing this and got the video ready to upload, might be back in lockdown again, because we're back at school now. So we'll just be waiting to see what happens. Okay, just do a couple more. So I'm just putting the bead on, going in just a little bit to the right of my stitch. So I'm left-handed, so I work this way, and then just make sure that that thread is round your needle. So you can see now, take that pin out. There we go. So that's now attaching that part, which is quite nice, just got like a beaded line. Just running up the edge. So I'm going to carry on doing that. I'll get it all stitched to the jacket this evening. And then the last little bit of the video will just be the book finished. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, this feels quite monumental. It's done. Totally finished the book. So I played around with some beading in some of these spaces because I just thought it was missing something, and then I'd totally forgotten about my teeny tiny safety pins, so I popped some of those on as well. And then the spine here, just lots of different layers, and then the back, a machine stitch. My machine does letters, so I've got my handmade on the back. Just kept the back quite simple. Then when I've joined it, I've done a few more blanket stitch with the beads on there as well, just to give it a nice edge. And it is one of those things that I keep thinking I really like my little dangly beads on the bottom, so I am wondering I might actually add a set of beads to the bottom of each of the pages. Oh, and I edged that as well with some beads. So we'll go through the whole book. So I got my toggle that I was going to put my edge on. I think it's worked quite nicely with the fringing around the edge. So we've got our first double page. Got your little toggle on there. I still like this one. I just really like the colours. And just little bits like the little fringing just on the edge, but it's not there, and it is there, and then little bits of waist stitched on. And just using up things that you've got in your stash. The page that I didn't think I was going to like, but I do actually quite like, I now got round to stitching down that Suffolk puff that's on the fold so it stops sticking out. I do like that one, even though I don't like pink. The yellow and grey, which seems to have been a theme that I've used quite a bit this year. Got a bit obsessed with buying yellow fabric and mustards. Then we've got our breather, which is nice. It's been lovely to see all the different types of stitching that people have done in your own interpretation of these different bits. The circles, this is the one that I've come to, and I love my negatives, but I wish I'd done a little bit more on my circles, because I've seen some of the ones that everybody's done and I just feel like mine are a little bit naked, really. Like the beaded edge, I think that works really nicely. Then we come on to probably my favourite little bit, I suppose, was the book. So you've got your book with your little mini pages in, and then the fact that there was a tag in there as well. I just love that. I love the little mini books. And then the little heart, because your book has to have a heart. Flip it over to your index. So I just think this is nice. Just lots of little bits. I think I love the way how sort of like you fold out, and it just reveals more as you're going along. And then the teeny tiny postcard that's inside that just talks about how this has just really helped, I suppose, really, the book. And it's really helped me. I know I've had some lovely comments and messages from people saying how it's helped them. It's really given me a focus and given me something just to keep me going. And then my other little heart, I've just popped it there. I've still just pinned it in, but I do quite like it. I think because the pink's there, I think it's one of those things it possibly was meant to be. I still need to go back in. My blue vanishing pen just keeps coming back a little bit, so I just need to go back into that with a little bit of water. Then I've got my hearts that are upside down on there, and then we get to the back. So that's it, second project done. To say I was only doing one project this year, this has been quite monumental. I've absolutely loved doing it, and I'm getting ideas together ready for the project that will start in January. I need to give myself a bit of time to have a think about it and also get some other things done as well, which I'll video. I'm doing some other things that I'm just doing, and if you want to join in, that's fantastic, if you need something to do. But the videos are all going to stay online for both the bobbin and the book, so don't panic if you've only just joined in, or if you're a little bit behind. They are going to stay there so that you can carry on, and please keep sharing what you've been doing. It's lovely to see them on Instagram. I try and get to see as many of them as I can, but there's so many people doing it now. If I've missed you off, I'm really sorry, but I will keep doing the community videos as well, because I just think that's nice. So that's it, book finished. Thank you for joining in, and I'll see you on the next project.